Namaste. So, we dwell today in one of the most marvelous prayers, a very special prayer. It is the prayer that the mother writes after meeting Sri Aurobindo. Yesterday, we read the one which is before meeting Sri Aurobindo on 29th March. On 29th March afternoon, she meets Sri Aurobindo, and after that, the very next day, she writes this wonderful prayer on March 30th, 1914. This is actually the whole prayer is a meditation, wonderful meditation. How, in the presence of those who are integrally thy servitors, of those who have arrived at the perfect consciousness of thy presence, I perceive that I am still far, very far from that which I would realize. माँ ऐसा कैसे लिख रही हैं? उन्होंने सब कुछ अनुभव कर लिया है, इसलिए लिख रही हैं क्योंकि इस समय एक चीज शेष है. धरती पर भगवान जब अवतार रूप में प्रकट होते हैं, उनकी सेवा करने का आनंद, ये सुख योगियों को भी नहीं मिलता है. अगर हम देखें रामायण और श्रीमद् भगवत गीता, ये भागवत पुराण में बहुत स्पष्ट रूप से ये प्रकट होता है कि गोपियों के साथ श्री कृष्ण का एक संबंध है, और भी अनेकों अनेकों भक्त ऋषि मुनि, ये सब इनके साथ श्री कृष्ण का एक संबंध है. लेकिन अर्जुन के साथ जो संबंध है, द रिलेशन, आई एम सॉरी आई गॉट कैरिड अवे बाय हिंदी. You see this prayer which is written by the mother after seeing Sri Aurobindo. It is so beautiful. She is speaking of something which she has not yet experienced in life. Now one would wonder, after having all the experiences within of Kundalini Shakti, of Nirvanic Brahman consciousness, she could go at will, of the divine everywhere which she had in Japan. What is it that is missing? What is it that she has not had? And she is using the word, those who are thy servitors. Now, this service, she has practiced the Karma Yoga of the Gita and realized its truth. But there is a difference between practicing this truth inwardly while engaged in action outwardly, even though it is a divinely inspired action, and directly engaging in works which are given by the divine as the avatar. This is what we will see subsequently as the ashram life unfolds. But here she is now ready to learn something very new, the service of the embodied divine. Now this is where we can turn to Ramayana and the Mahabharata and the Bhagavad Puran. We see that in Ramayana, if there is one person with whom Lord Rama's name is inseparable, it is not even Lakshmana, not Bharat. They were all his devotees. Not so many, countless. Even sages and seers and bhaktas were there. But it is with Hanuman. To take the name of Lord Rama is to take the name of Lord Hanuman. Remember Hanuman. To remember Hanuman is impossible without thinking of Lord Rama, because of the servitor of the embodied divine. We cannot even imagine what it means. Same thing we see in Srimad Bhagavat Puran, where there are so many, saints and sages who have experienced Sri Krishna in their inner being, and in so many ways, countless acharyas and seers and saints, subsequently also yogis who have experienced him. But when we think of Sri Krishna and not think of Arjuna, there is something incomplete. All the gopis and gopis are fine, but Sri Krishna himself declares that it is with you. He doesn't say that with gopis, saints, sages, but with you I have a relation which declares itself through lives, which is what Sri Aurobindo speaks about when he writes a letter to Dilip Kumar Roy or Charu Chandra Dutt, that it is a relation that declares itself from life to life, where we have fought the great battle of the ages. So being the servitor of the divine when he takes a human body and a human birth is an unparalleled privilege and an ecstasy which she wants to experience now, because she has realized in one look that he is the one whom I have seen yesterday. He is Krishna, he is the Lord, he is the Supreme upon earth. So now she look at the divine humility, that all my realizations count for nothing. They are there, but now this is the one which I want. We see how Kapali Shastri ji, how inspiring these lives are, who had done all kinds of sadhana. Tantra sadhana, Vedanta sadhana, mantra sadhana. He could himself be a guide to many, a guru to many. And when he came to ashram and lived here, someone asked him, "What is it that you found here? You had already completed everything." And he says that why? All the result fruits of all my sadhana is that they have brought me at the feet of the Divine Mother. So this is the way they showed, the way that there is nothing comparable to doing the work of the embodied divine upon earth. So she is speaking of that, and she says that I am still very far from realizing this state. And as soon as she comes, she starts the work, as we know. I perceive that I am still very far from that which I would realize. And I know that what I conceive to be highest, noblest, and purest is still dark and ignorant in comparison with that which I have to conceive. So there is an aspect of the divine in creation, in the entire manifestation, which she knows in theory, but she has to manifest in detail. That's why when she was asked about reminiscences, what does the mother write? She doesn't write her whole life. She simply says the reminiscences will be short. I came to India to meet Sri Aurobindo. I continued to live here because of his work. And what is that work? That also she reveals. So her whole life is centered around serving the embodied divine. She is herself the Divine Mother, but by this she is revealing to us the highest example she is placing before mankind. But this perception, far from being depressing, stimulates and strengthens my aspiration, my energy, my will to triumph over all obstacles, so as to be at last identified with thy law and thy work. So she is identified with the divine, but identified with thy law and thy work. So that is why she says in this yoga, it is not enough just to aspire for the divine and union with the divine, but aspire for the divine and his work, his service. So they are very important. That right in the very first prayer she is revealing that now I have an opportunity not only to be identified with the within, which I have experienced, realized, and all the powers and possibilities, but now I have the possibility of manifesting thy truth, thy law, and to express it in thy work. This prayer is directly addressed to the embodied divine. So it is a very unique prayer to the avatar. Because otherwise, a kind of karma yoga she was already doing. But this is the karma yoga which starts when the avatar is present upon earth. We'll talk about it probably later in somewhere else. The difference between the ordinary karma yoga which we practice, where we pick and choose the work but do it in the spirit of offering to the divine, and the work which is the divine work given by the divine and which we do. So there is a difference between the two. So she is using the word thy work. Little by little the horizon becomes precise, the path becomes clear, and we advance to an ever greater certitude. So this is the way, through works, the path becomes clear. So beautiful it is, that in the Isha Upanishad, evam tvai na anyeti pantha kurvannevehe karmani jiji visheshatam sama. It is through works that the path opens and becomes clear. And then these famous lines, it matters not if there are hundreds of beings plunged in the densest ignorance. Here comes the certitude that the divine work will be done and the manifestation will take place. Why? Because the divine himself is here upon earth. When he has taken the body, he knows he has come for a work and that work will be accomplished. There is not the least doubt about it. The very fact that the mother and Sri Aurobindo took a human body is itself a sign and indication, and must fill us with not just hope but a certitude that the work they have undertaken is bound to be done. He whom we saw yesterday is on earth. Now she is speaking of her own vision of seeing Krishna of her from childhood days, and again in 1904 her bowing down at the feet of Sri Aurobindo, whom she took to be one of the gods with this an apparition, who was dressed probably like a Greek god, the Krishna with whom she had already realized identity. So she's saying that, oh, I had seen him in the vision, but he is here upon earth. His presence is enough to prove that a day will come when darkness shall be transformed into light, when thy reign shall be indeed established upon earth. The divine presence alone is enough. His presence will bring into motion many forces into play. See, she's revealing the whole secret of the avatar. Ordinarily, also, the divine is working in whole creation. But he is hidden behind the veil of the Yog Maya, which the Yog Maya has woven, his own Yog Maya, and through that he is working. These are his works and his veils and his shadows. So he is working from behind, but through all these different forces. But as an avatar, he stands in the forefront. So that he who is hidden behind the immanent divine, the supreme, who is hidden behind everything and beyond everything, takes on a human body and stands in the forefront of the human quest and the human journey. So the very fact he has come into the forefront means many layers of creation through which the work proceeds, they are suddenly cut off, and there is a jump time and a rapid evolution simply because the divine is present upon earth. O Lord, divine builder of this marvel, my heart overflows with joy and gratitude when I think of it, and my hope is boundless. So important thing is that she's not thinking, oh, I had not got this opportunity, I have not done it, there's something which is missing. But suddenly she is filled with enthusiasm and gratitude. And this should be our state whenever we get in whatever small a measure something of the divine work. There are so many works that the divine has released upon this earth, and to be associated with any of them is a rarest of rare felicity. And we must say this work is not confined only to ashram. The ashram work, society work, Auroville work, and work in the world, countless ways. Wherever there is a glory of the divine and his work is being, and his name is being expounded, wherever his countless manifestations are taking place, all that is part of the large work of the divine. But it starts with a very small seed as an humble beginning. My adoration surpasses all words, and my reverence is silent. So she is entered into a state of complete silence, and this adoration is beyond words. Why? Because there is now a wonderful scope of service of the embodied divine. So this is something we have to understand. I gave this example that it is not always with a very physical presence of the divine. Take for example Sri Krishna's work or Lord Rama's work. Hanuman did his work by being by his side, and he is indispensable. Bharat did his work in the kingdom being very far from him. So there are countless ways his work is done. His work is done even after he leaves the physical body. There are things he has established. There are things, energies, forces he has released, idea forces. And to help in their manifestation is also the work. And Sri Aurobindo gives this wonderful example with reference to Sri Krishna. He says Sri Krishna saved India through the Mahabharata, and he established the Indian nation, the Aryavarth, when the Bharat Bhumi, which was completely under the influence of very arrogant Kshatriyas who were all divided into various kingdoms, and through Yudhishthir and Dharmaraj, he united the entire kingdom under the reign of Dharma. So, but then he says that the work of Sri Krishna, that was maintained and carried on through the generations and thousands of years by countless kings and people who upheld the Sanatan Dharma as released by him and continued it right till Jhansi Ki Rani, with whom Sri Krishna's work came to a close in the sense that he has to now bring out a new work, which we know is the yoga of transformation. So this work is not only the work which physically the mother and Sri Aurobindo gave. That of course it's understood. All work, for example, in the ashram is the mother's work. But also the works, the idea forces that they released into this world and which are struggling to manifest against lot of forces that are trying to destroy it. So all work which brings into in the ambit of new creation, and all work which they have released while in their physical body can be taken as their work. And to be associated with any such work is a wonder and a beauty and a joy. So with this attitude, we will read this prayer, March 30th, 1914. How in the presence of those who are integrally thy servitors, of those who have arrived at the perfect consciousness of thy presence, I perceive that I am still far, very far from that which I would realize. And I know that what I conceive to be highest, noblest, and purest is still dark and ignorant in comparison with that which I have to conceive. But this perception, far from being depressing, stimulates and strengthens my aspiration, my energy, my will to triumph over all obstacles, so as to be at last identified with thy law and thy work. And since this unfolding of this law is endless, and since this work is endless, we can say that we should never be satisfied with oneself, with one's experiences, with one's service, because there is always something which we can do for the divine. There is always something which we can give to the divine, something more than what we have given. So instead of depressing us, this opens doors to infinite degrees of realizations and experiences. So this is a very humbling prayer, and also this is a prayer which lights up the fire of aspiration beyond all limits. Little by little, the horizon becomes precise, the path becomes clear, and we advance to an ever greater certitude. It matters not if there are hundreds of beings plunged in the densest ignorance. He whom we saw yesterday is on earth. His presence is enough to prove that a day will come when darkness shall be transformed into light, when thy reign shall be indeed established upon earth. O Lord, divine builder of this marvel, my heart overflows with joy and gratitude when I think of it, and my hope is boundless. My adoration surpasses all words, and my reverence is silent. Namaste.